Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McDonald, and welcome to another episode of An Honest Conversation. You will notice that I am not Mike Newman. That is because he is sitting here next to me. Today is the day for him to tell his story. I won't pretend I have any idea how to interview. I also haven't had my coffee yet, so I'm going to be an absolute puddle for the majority of this. So, Mike, so we can stop hearing me talk, I'm going to open the floor to you. When did your journey with mental health begin?
So my mental health journey begins in grade 3, but it took me a long time to realize that it started then. Like I was diagnosed with ADHD in grade 5 or 6, I can't remember, so I guess you're, 11 or 12? And that's when things kind of slowly became conscious to me, where I was like, this is something I'm going to have to work with. But definitely grade 3 was the start.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because a lot of people, when they hear the terms mental health, and we start talking about mental health related things, it's just, depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, those types of ones that are continued. But I guess it's very nice to hear that you're kind of viewing it as the entire spectrum of not only being those things, but also including things just like ADHD and such. I guess sort of the
even self-image, like when I talk about grade 3, like I don't know, I wasn't depressed in grade 3. I was a pretty happy kid for what I can remember, but I was just relentlessly bullied at school because I was born with my ears out like this. If you ever seen a baby photo of me, you'll know exactly what it looks like. You put them side by side, you'd be like, something's different. It's because my ears were pinned back in grade 3 because I was just, again, relentlessly bullied by it or for it, would come home crying every day from school. And, I wouldn't say that I was depressed, but I was definitely not it was not a happy year for grade 3 Michael. So I think that was kind of my first real experience with it, whether I realized it or not. But that's a self-image thing. I wish, truthfully, that I hadn't done that now, but I was 8 and had only so much foresight. But I think, it's still to me a sign that no matter how young you are, you can still feel these things.
Why do you wish you hadn't done it?
Because the way I live my life now is just unapologetically me, and I feel as though I am like 99.9% me because I altered something. But I also, I am me. I'm 100% me. So it's weird. There's days where I care, there's days where I don't. It's never going to ruin my life thinking about it. It doesn't cause me stress. It's kind of just like I wish I could tell 8-year-old me that, just put my arm around his shoulder and be like, it's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. This guy's just being a dick.
That you don't have to change because somebody else wants you to change.
You don't have to change because somebody else doesn't like something about you. Who cares? You are the main character of your story, as you said. So why let a side character just ruin your plot?
It's very interesting. Now, if that was a decision that you had come to just on your own, would that have been different? For example, like people who get, let's say, a nose job or whatever, just because that's just what they want to do.
I think so. But I don't think that it was ever something that I hated about myself. I was never like, I hate my ears, because I never looked long enough to care about my ears because I was always too busy doing things. Like, the ADHD probably kept me from paying attention to it for long enough to notice it until I started taking meds 3 or 4 years after it had happened. Which, I guess that's a good thing. But also, I can't necessarily say because I don't remember hating my ears. I remember hating that people made fun of them. It was not, I don't think it happened because I hated my ears. Maybe I did, but I think, I remember how I felt. I don't remember what people said. I remember that I did not have fun when people made fun of them. So I was like, I don't want these anymore. But it's not because I hated them, which I think is probably an issue that a lot of younger kids face now. Especially with Instagram, social media, just being the destructive forces that they are.
Well, it's the first time in history that you can actually quantify your value. the number of likes or followers or anything.
I'm so happy that Instagram got rid of likes.
Yeah, you know what? That's a conversation for another time. We've had that one before. So let's fast forward a little bit. When was the next time that your mental health sort of became something that you were consciously aware of?
So, again, I don't know how much I would say, depression, anxiety, any of the major kind of mental health kind of keywords that might resonate with some people, but ADHD is what I struggle with. So I was diagnosed grade 5 or 6, so you're 11 or 12. And I remember just going to therapy for it, and I was put in a room with these kids who some of them were just like me, can have a normal conversation, might just be a little bit fidgety, like I'm sure you'll notice I'll spin in the chair a little bit, I'll move my knee, I'll put my foot down and up sometimes. Some people just tap their leg like this, like it's just little things like that. But there were some kids that would just like, midway through a conversation, like they would be saying something and all of a sudden would just never come back to the conversation. And for me to be put in that scenario where it was like half and half, it was like, I feel like there's something wrong with me here. And I don't know how open about that I've been until very, very recently. But I think like looking back on it, I'm definitely more aware of it now, but hindsight is 20/20. But I think for me, that was my first kind of like, I feel very different, and I don't think I like it.
Do you think it's damaging to do those types of group exercises?
I think it's damaging if you don't properly explain and make sure the kid understands why they're going. And I don't think, when I was in 2010, when I was diagnosed with it, or actually it was 2008 or 2007. When I was diagnosed with it, we didn't have the same type of information we have about it now. Like I spent 3.5 years learning about ADHD in school. I've learned more about it just reading a couple of published documents in the last 2 years than I did from the time being diagnosed until third year university. So I don't think at the time there was any other way to do it.
The information wasn't really there yet to do anything different.
But I think now if you say to a 10-year-old, hey, you have this thing called ADHD, you are no different than the majority of people. Almost everybody has some form of ADD, ADHD. I shouldn't say everybody, about 40-50% of people. And that number might be wrong. But tons of people have it. I know at least half my friends have it because they've told me. And like, no one cares. So what? You might fidget, you might move around a little bit more. I understand if you're an elementary kid who's sitting in the same classroom with the same teacher every day for school for the whole year, that can get frustrating to a teacher. So you might need to address it. But I think you need to properly explain to the kid, here's what's gonna happen. And not do, there's explaining and then there's over-explaining. You can be like, you see how puppies freak out whenever they see a ball? Their attention just immediately goes to the ball? Sometimes your brain just does that on its own. And that's fine. That's just what happens. There's a way to fix it if you would like. And here's how it happens. You take this little pill, and each time you take the pill, there's a thing in your brain that goes in a circle, which is your neural loops, and they're either hyperactive or underactive, ADD versus ADHD. And you just flick the switch and it runs smoothly with the pill, and then it doesn't run as smoothly without the pill. And then you show them a little toy car with a busted wheel, and you say, this doesn't run smoothly. This does. Here's what it's like.
So you think it'd be helpful to have, or to at least try to explain what's going on with children to them?
Yeah, I think had I known.
This is something that I have no idea on. Is that side of it? Like, just at what point kids can process that information?
I truthfully think had it been explained to me in 12-year-old words or 11-year-old words, that I would have been able to understand it. But I never remember having this moment where I was like, I understand what is going on. Like, it took me until third year university to fully understand what was going on with my body, and that's not even because I found out from like a counselor or anything. It's because I took a neurobiology course, which is a study of the brain. And it was like, here's what happens in ADHD. This specific circuit is hyperactive. In ADD, this specific circuit and this specific node in the circuit. It was like, oh, well, you can explain that to a 12-year-old really easily. Here's a circle. Now there's a little bump in the circle. See how it's not smooth anymore? This is what happens. It's that easy. They might not get it, but they're gonna understand it a lot better than me saying there's something in your brain that's not working properly and here's how we're gonna fix it.
I also think there's a huge difference between processing it and fully understanding it. Like they may be able to process. I think that toy car analogy is great because okay, like this car doesn't have its fourth wheel. The pill could be the fourth wheel. That's very easy to understand. You don't have to understand the exact science behind it.
No,
but then again, it all comes down to, personal beliefs on trusting what's going into your body and everything. And all I don't want to comment on that because I believe everybody should have a choice of whatever they want to do.
I agree, and for that reason, I didn't take medication for the first 3 years of university, 2.5 years of university until I dropped out, because I think part of going to those therapy courses over the course of like my high school, so I stopped taking my ADHD medication, which was Ritalin, in grade 10. Or grade 9, I can't remember which. And I didn't take it until second year university, and in that time my grades went from 80s, 85s, 75s to 65s, 60s, 70s, and even throughout university. And I took a year off of university, and it was not a fun time. And I was kind of just like, okay, I need to go back, and I need to kind of go back to the basics. So part of that was me taking this course, and as we were going through, I still wasn't taking the medication, but as we're going through this course, as it was explained to me as a 20 or 21-year-old, I was like, oh, I need to take this.
So that was like a light bulb moment for you.
My light bulb moment happened at 21 or 22 or 20 or whatever, however old I was. But I think you could have that light bulb moment with a kid. You just have to do it with
it's
a
just
nice,
a different
clean
approach.
example. Yeah, with like say the toy car approach. But I don't think I ever had that, and I think that probably contributed to me not wanting to take my medication, which caused a lot of other problems. Like ADHD. One of the things that comes with it is impulsivity. And for those who know me, I'm a very impulsive person, or can be a very impulsive person, and between the years of 18 or 17 and I would say 21, I made some very poor impulsive decisions that I wish I had just been on my meds, because they would have prevented me from making those decisions. But because I didn't want to believe there was something, I felt there was something wrong with me, and I just didn't want to accept it when there isn't. Everybody has their own little quirks. Just because, your brain might distract you or can't focus for as long does not mean you were different or there was something wrong with you, which is something that I really struggled with for a long time. And I still have days here and there where I struggle with it. But there were very dark days because of that, where I was like, I remember in first year university when I was taking a math course, and I could not for the life of me get it. And I just refused to admit that I couldn't understand it and that it wasn't working, and I just tried to push through it even though something was wrong. Something was not working. And I'm taking a math class right now, and I'm taking my meds. And even though some things don't work, I take a step back and I think logically, and I go, okay, let's review this. But me, who doesn't want to admit something is wrong, can't acknowledge a mistake.
So the medication and the acceptance of your reality allows you to be much more pragmatic and more level-headed when solving things?
Yes, so the acceptance that there is nothing wrong with me led to me taking the medication again.
Interesting.
And I think that's another thing for mental health too, because when my mental health was down in the dumps and I was, looking through my medicine cabinet being like, what's the fastest bottle of pills I can swallow that I'm not going to wake up from? Which is not a fun place to be by any means. I wish that I had accepted that there's nothing wrong with me, or had it not even accepted, just acknowledged being like, there is something going on here. There is something wrong. Because the only thing that happened when I finally did accept that something was wrong was that things got better.
I don't think you can actually truly get better, and this is just from my personal experience that we talked about last week, but I don't think you can actually address the problem until you yourself are ready to. until you acknowledge that it's there.
And that you want to, more or less. Like, there was a full, probably month-long gap between the time where I accepted that something was wrong and the time where I was like, okay, I need to go work on this. And then there was probably another 6 or 7 months before the time I actually started. Like, it's a process, and it sucked. And truthfully, the whole reason that I fixed it was because I got in a humongous fight with my parents that just was bad, and it put me in a dark place because I was the cause of it, where I could have just walked away, and that stuck with me and still sticks to me to this day because it could have been completely avoidable, but I refused to accept that something was wrong. And because I refused to acknowledge or accept that something was wrong or that I had done something wrong, it caused more problems. And unconsciously, this ate away at me because I like to think I have a pretty strong moral compass. And I think my moral compass was just like, that sucks, you did this, we're never going to let you forget about this. And it just ate away at me and ate away at me.
It can be tough to blatantly accept that you were in the wrong. A lot of people are terrified of being wrong.
I am not the most excited to be wrong, but I think no bigger leaps of personal growth have come than when I admitted I was wrong. And for me, admitting I was wrong with my mental health was literally saying, yo, you're in a really bad place. How can you acknowledge this? Because not only did I put myself in a bad place, but I put, people in my close family in a bad place out of concern and because of my actions. And I think that was also really tough to deal with and to acknowledge, and part of what contributed to it being like so scary to deal with. And I think whether you get to a point where you're ready to swallow a bottle of pills and end it all, or whether the first thing you do is analyze what goes wrong and think logically, you have to be nice to yourself. You just have to be nice to yourself, because that is the thing that I struggled with, I think, the most, was that I held myself to a very high standard, and I never met that standard, and I was just never nice to myself about it. And because I was never nice to myself about it, it just continued to grow and snowball and just make my mental health that much worse.
I think as humans, we are essentially hardwired to screw up. That's just the way we are, right?
I think every sentient being that has control over what it does is wired to make a mistake at some point. And even if that mistake, results in like death, being, a lion or a hyena eating you in the African savannah, or, you made a mistake and you ran a red light, or, you made a mistake and dropped a coffee. Like, these are all mistakes. But we are human, and we have to just realize we're gonna make mistakes.
I think a big thing to touch on there is realizing that, as humans, we're going to make mistakes, and it's important to realize that and not beat ourselves up about it. That being said, we do still have to be accountable to our actions. There is responsibility to remedy that mistake, but in order to remedy that mistake, you have to accept that mistake.
And I think, for me, I naturally, it came of my own accord to be like, hey, I have made a mistake and I need to fix it. But to actually fix it took a lot of pushing. And I think that mistakes you make, how you feel when you make a mistake is what you learn from. And that's the same thing that happens with mental health. Like, 8-year-old Michael remembers how he felt when he got bullied about his ears. 23-year-old Michael remembers how 15-year-old Michael felt when he screwed up a play in hockey and gave up a goal because he made a terrible play. And guess what? I didn't do that again. Actually, I probably did, but
Probably a comment on your hockey skill.
Yeah, it's
more
probably
than-
hockey. Yeah, it's comment on my
anything
hockey
else.
skills more than anything. A2, but like, I remember how I felt at 15 when I made a mistake. I remember how I felt yesterday when I made a mistake. But I didn't remember how it sucked to remedy the mistake. I didn't remember how it sucked to think about it and analyze it. I remember the feeling of how it sucked.
So you think it's the emotion and the feeling that is what you actually learn from?
Yes, because I think humans, or anything for that matter, strives to feel positive emotions. I don't think anybody openly wants to feel negative emotions.
I think it was very safe to say.
Like maybe
I'm
that's
just thinking about when my dog claws at me. He immediately knows that he did something wrong, and he'll go and try to apologize. And if that guy can remedy his actions, I think. Don't get me wrong, I love Tucker, but he might not be the smartest guy. He might not be the brightest creature out there. I'm just kidding, Tucker. If you're watching, I love you.
such a good little boy.
But I think as humans, it's important to be able to process that, to not deny your emotions, to understand them and the impact that they have on others. But then also, do what you can to remedy them, but don't be so goddamn hard on yourself.
Like, if you drop a coffee, it's not the end of the world. You can get another coffee at some point in your life. Maybe not immediately, and that might suck, but then next time you'll be careful, right? Maybe you'll get a tray next time. There's so many ways to fix that specific issue. But when it comes to mental health, when you make a mistake in your life and it starts to eat at you and it just starts to claw at your mental health like it did for me, like, just chill. Just take a step back. Just relax. You're fine. Mistakes suck, but I think bottling it up and just trying to push it away is the worst thing that you can do. And I think that, for me, is what really put me behind the eight ball, so to speak, where I was considering playing with my life. And that's not something that I say lightly. It's not something where I think that I'm saying that for attention. I'm saying that because I think it's important to say that I've been to, I don't want to say the brink, but I've been pretty damn close. Where the want is there, and I just couldn't follow through. And I think it's important to show that and to show where I am now, because if I can do it, anyone can do it. And for those of you who know me, know that is especially true. Be nice to yourself, and I'm an idiot. I love myself. I'm my favorite person, but I'm also an idiot. So for me to get from that point to get all the way to where I am now, to be able to openly talk about it and share my story, I think only happens through just acknowledging that I might have made a mistake, but also realizing that I can fix that mistake. Like, almost every single mistake that has ever been made can be fixed.
I agree with that. I don't know much more to say than that. I agree with you.
If you delete some stuff off of your camera, for example, it sucks, but you can fix it. You gotta take it again, right? Or if you, drop a coffee, get another coffee, right? Some things are worse. Sometimes you total your mom's car. Sorry, Mom.
Did you do that?
When I was in grade 12, yeah. I T-boned somebody and totaled my mom's car. Some mistakes are more expensive to replace than others, and are harder to remedy than others. But you can fix it. Just might take some time. And it might take a bit of apologizing. And you might feel sad, or you might feel like you're stupid, or you might feel like an idiot. But you are not an idiot or stupid or any of those things 100% of the time. Everybody gets time in their day to be an idiot. Everyone gets time in their day to be goofy. Everybody gets time in their day to make mistakes. But the majority of your day is not making mistakes. The majority of your day is doing things correctly and being the best you can be. So I think
I like to believe that humans are inherently good people, so we're going to try to live our majority of our lives that way. That being said, I am also a total idiot, so Some of us spend more time being goofy than others. So
I prefer to live my life as a goofy idiot, is what I would say.
Okay, Mike, so we are obviously running low on time now. Was there anything else you want to touch on? Anything you want to share with people watching this?
I just think to reach out and to be kind and just... Actually, there is one more thing I want to touch on. This will probably take about 2 or 3 more minutes. I think reaching out to your friends with mental health is super important, just to check up on them. But I also think, and I am guilty of this, and I am terrible at not doing this, and I apologize to my friends who I've done this to. If they don't answer you, or if they don't want to talk to you, or if they don't want to see you, that's their decision. That may be how they want to cope. And they don't have to tell you that. But you can't force yourself back into their life. You can't force them to do stuff. You can only offer them a hand and offer them the option, the opportunity. And I think it's just so important to say, hey man, you know, if all the boys were playing video games and Dave, I hadn't heard from Dave in a while, I'd be like, hey Dave, we're all playing video games tonight, you should come hop on FaceTime and join us. Haven't heard from you in a while. You don't have to if you don't want to. And if he doesn't answer, then he doesn't answer, that's fine. And if he answers and he's like, no thanks, I'm just gonna chill, I'd be like, that's all good man, let me know if you wanna hang out soon, or, you know, try and just give the option. Or he does, or he comes on and plays and we have a great time. But the most important thing is to check on your friends, to be there for others, and to be nice to yourself. Just because somebody doesn't respond to you does not mean that you are in the wrong, does not mean that you have to force them to do something, does not mean that you have to force yourself to do anything. Give them the option, let them make the decision, and be nice.
I think that's a good place to end it. Works for
I would
you.
say so, yeah.
Thank you for everybody who stuck around this long. Again, I am not Michael Newman, but this has been an honest conversation. We look forward to having you back next week.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.